Councilmember Garland, we are okay to start.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm Councilmember Garland, along with Councilmember Joel Navarro. This is the Human Services and Community Safety Committee meeting. Due to concerns over the exposure to coronavirus, the city has implemented measures to protect our community, including the closing of council chambers and limiting public attendance to electronic means only. Members of the public may attend the meeting virtually through Cisco WebEx events or view the meeting recording by watching or going to www.tempe.gov/clerk for more information. It's important to understand that no formal vote or decisions about city programs, policies, or budgets will happen here. Our role is to explore various topics with staff, stakeholders, and community members to make recommendations to our council colleagues. We want this process to be transparent, inclusive, and easy for you to be a part of whenever you want to or choose to be. And you can share your thoughts with us by filling out a comment card about any item on a meeting agenda or by reaching out to us directly with any of your thoughts, questions, or ideas. We need you to fill out a comment card in advance that can be read into the record for any agendized item. The link to the comment cards can be found on our committee webpage at www.tempe.gov/HSCS. And you will also find contact information for committee members and staff there for any non-agendized questions as well. So item number one, I'd like to call this meeting to order. On June 24th, 2022, this is the meeting of the Human Services and Community Safety Council Committee. Number two item on our agenda is reviewing our minutes. So I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 27th, 2022. Councilmember Navarro?
So moved.
Yay, great. That was super easy. I like how easy that is. All right, so we are moving on. Item number three is public comments. The committee welcomes public comment. According to the Arizona open meeting law, the committee may only discuss matters listed on the agenda. Matters brought up by the public under public appearances that are not listed under the agenda cannot be discussed by the committee. A 3-minute limit per person will be in effect. Paul, do we have comment cards for this meeting?
Yes, we do, council members. We have 18 comment cards submitted for folks who intend to give their comment in person. We have 35 who would wish to have their comments read into the record. And we have 1 comment card for an item that is not on the agenda. In addition, we had 7 comment cards from folks who did not want their comments read into the record. So we are ready to start with those who want to give their comment in person. And we're going to start with Megan Bolter. Megan, I'm going to unmute you now. You have 2 minutes to make your comment. Megan, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. My name is Megan Bolter, and I'm a public health law attorney and the Western Regional Director with the Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation, also known as Tobacco 21. We have been participating in the development of this ordinance and following along to assist as a national organization that works at all levels of government to both develop policy that restricts youth access to tobacco products through tobacco retail licensing, developing effective compliance protocols, and raising the minimum legal sales age to 21. We appreciate the opportunity to contribute, and we have reviewed the ordinance draft language. It is robust. We see a concerted effort to protect youth with respect to access to electronic cigarettes. However, we would respectfully request additional measures, including a compliance structure, which ensures that tobacco retailers are held accountable for any illegal sales. This also protects retailers who are good actors from those who are selling illegally and who do not comply because there is no enforcement measure. I think I'm going in and out, so my apologies. I'm a bit nervous. It seems like, can you hear me completely?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. The state has yet to take action with respect to its statewide tobacco retail license, and thus this committee stands in the unique position of moving ahead with its intention to regulate the sale of tobacco products for protection of its community in the best avenue and ways that it knows how. It also seeks to protect its business sector by maintaining rules and regulations that comply at the federal level as well, with the federal level of law. I wanted to quickly address that in prior hearings, many members in opposition of any sort of tobacco regulation regarding e-cigarettes or flavors have indicated that they support work at the state level and a statewide license. Please note that some of these efforts are not genuine, in that both pieces of legislation mentioned by our opponents, both SB 1245 and respectfully HB 2505, which have not passed and did not get through both houses, both include preemption, which means those opponents of this ordinance seek to cut the authority. I just was muted.
Hi, I'm sorry, Megan. We are at time at 2 minutes. We do have a lot of people who are scheduled to speak today. If you could just get to the end of your comments as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Simply raising the minimum legal sales age without tobacco retail license does not effectuate change. And please consider our opponents' rationale for supporting statewide efforts that limit this commission's and the city's authority to regulate public health within their own communities. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute. My apologies for the technical errors.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you. Next, we have Philip Carpenter. Philip, are you on the line? And I just realized that everyone's on mute unless they are unmuted. So I have a few participants who do not have their names down. So I do apologize. If you could put it into the chat that you are here and we will get to you. Thank you. So Philip, I do not see. We'll move on to our next commenter. And that is Anna Egatz Gomez. I'm sorry, Anna. Anna, I'm muting you now.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I am a volunteer with Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes in Tempe. I am a mother of 2 children, one of them in the Tempe High School district. I also work as a scientist at Arizona State University. I would like to urge the committee to end the sale of all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products in Tempe with no exception. Please take all the necessary steps to ensure that down to the smallest details, the final draft ordinance before the full council is fully consistent with the objective to end the sale of all products and all flavors. I've seen it in first-hand experience. The tobacco industry uses flavors to lure our kids and make them addicted for the rest of their lives. And that damaging their hearts, their lungs, and the parts of the brain that control attention, learning, mood, and impulse control. Actually, when kids start vaping, you can note there is a change in their personality for the worse. Arizona is one of 13 states that don't require a license, and Tempe must add. In Arizona, 50% of high schoolers have tried flavored tobacco products, and 17% of young adults 18 to 29 are addicts and vape regularly. And there is a link between these products, oral health, respiratory problems, even depression and suicidal ideation. And I was reading not long ago that 17% of high school students in Arizona said that they have seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. I was reading in the local newspaper that we had in the Tempe High School District recently, the past year, a couple of suicides. So we are losing our kids. How can we tolerate this? There are other ways to make money that don't imply harming children and young adults' lives. But selling flavored nicotine products to children and young adults is so easy in Arizona right now.
Anna, but we have time at 2 minutes. Could you get to the end of your comments, please?
Yeah, so I urge the committee to end the sale of all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products in Tempe with no exception and take all the necessary steps to ensure that all the smallest details, the final draft ordinance does complies with this objective. And I thank you very much again for the opportunity of sharing your concerns.
Thank you, Anna.
Our next speaker is Amanda Gray. Amanda, I'm unmuting you now.
Thank you. Council members and staff, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this important issue. For the record, my name is Amanda Gray. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Petroleum Marketers Association. We represent convenience stores, gas stations, and fuel distributors across the state and in the city of Tempe. With sky-high inflation, supply chain issues, and labor shortages, now is the wrong time to consider banning products that help convenience stores stay open. A ban could force retailers to raise prices elsewhere, even as consumers are struggling to pay for food and fuel. No one wants any adult-only tobacco product to fall into the hands of youth, and our retailers are the best line of defense to prevent that. They all train their staff to check tobacco consumer IDs. Some even conduct secret shopper programs or ID scanning technology. Banning flavored tobacco or vapor products shifts these sales to other communities, or worse, to the illicit market, who will not check IDs and will actively target youth. Here in Arizona, illicit sales are a major issue already. 37% of all tobacco sales are illicit. That's nearly double the national average and the fourth highest rate in the United States. Still, despite serving their communities, paying taxes, and obeying the laws, these business owners, many of whom are minorities and family-run businesses, are impacted by this proposal. The FDA is already taking action to determine which products are appropriate for the protection of public health. The current PMTA process has denied millions of vapor products from returning to the market. The FDA also has asserted authority over synthetic nicotine, and just this week it issued a market denial order for JUUL products. A better approach is a statewide solution that includes retailer licensing and penalties rather than going city by city that is going to drive sales out of Tempe. Will punish retailers in your community because they're going to lose sales not only from the tobacco products, but also other purchases made at the same time. If this ordinance does proceed today, I would ask that you please give retailers an opportunity to participate in a meaningful and robust stakeholder process. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Amanda.
Our next speaker is Trish Hart, and I'd just like to correct something that was pointed out in the chat. Participants have 3 minutes to make comment. Sorry about that. So Trish, could you please go? I'm going to unmute you now.
Yes, thank you. For the record, my name is Trish Hart, and I represent the Arizona Food Marketing Alliance, which represents retail grocers and convenience stores throughout the state. And first of all, I would just like to thank the staff for helping us to be able to make sure that everyone had the opportunity to get their comment cards submitted. That has been an issue for the last 2 meetings, and I just wanted to please let staff know how much we appreciated them working with us on making sure that issue was addressed. So thank you very much. On this ordinance, we would ask that since we are the retailers that are selling these products, we would very much like to be part of the discussions moving forward. We believe a strong, robust stakeholder process is key and imperative. We would ask to be a part of those discussions. We are responsible retailers of tobacco and vapor products, and we do everything that we possibly can, including training and many other things to ensure that youth do not have access to these products. And we would very much welcome the opportunity to sit down with members of the council and staff to discuss the various provisions of the ordinance so that we can have so that everyone can have a clear understanding how this affects all of the interested parties. And with that, I thank you for your time and your attention to this very important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish.
Our next speaker is Haley Hodges. Haley, you are unmuted.
Hello, council members. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Haley Hodges, and I represent NATO, the National Association of Tobacco Outlets, which has several member retail stores in Tempe. As I mentioned last time, during last month's meeting, an ordinance prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco products in the city is not necessary due to the actions being taken by the FDA. Manufacturers of new products, primarily e-cig and vapor products, were required to file a PMTA with the FDA by September 9th of 2020 in order to keep their products on the market until the agency issued either an order denying their application or authorizing continued sale of their products. And since September of 2021, the FDA has denied over 7 million applications for e-cigarette and vapor products. And to date, the FDA has only authorized 15 electronic cigarette and nicotine vapor products for continued sale, and all of them are tobacco flavored, just normal tobacco flavored products. No other kind of flavored products has been authorized for sale, and so far the FDA has issued orders denying the sale of every flavor of vapor products, including the candy flavors that have been mentioned. The FDA continues to conduct its review of remaining PMTA applications and has stated that they intend to complete it by the summer of 2023 in June. So this means that all of the flavors of e-cigarette and vapor products that may be appealing to youth are being removed from the market. And as we just saw, a similar decision with Juul that was made this week. Moreover, in April of this year, the FDA issued 2 proposed regulations banning the sale of menthol cigarettes and flavored cigars. And if these are enacted by the FDA, these would apply nationwide to every state. All of these FDA actions demonstrate that the issue of flavored tobacco products is being addressed at the federal level and should stay that way. And Tempe should just allow the FDA regulatory process to continue to respond to public health issues and address the issue of flavored tobacco products at a federal level. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley.
Our next speaker is Brian Hummel. Brian, I am looking for you to unmute now.
Great, thank you. My name is Brian Hummel. I'm the Arizona Director of Government Relations for the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. We advocate to advance the mission of the American Cancer Society through public policy. Thank you for allowing me to speak on the proposed ordinance prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco. Menthol, other candy and fruit flavored tobacco products are a key part of the tobacco industry's strategy to bait youth and communities of color into a potential lifetime of addiction. Tobacco remains the #1 cause of preventable disease, disability, and death in the United States, and smoking increases the risk of at least 13 different types of cancer. Ending the sale of all flavored tobacco, without exception, is a critical step to reduce tobacco use and its devastating toll. This is not an economic development issue. This is a public health issue. Retailers have nothing to fear if they don't sell to kids. Compliance checks conducted by the Attorney General's office in 2021 found 14% of the time retailers did sell to kids. We appreciate the effort put forward in the draft ordinance and commit to work with the city staff to work on areas of concern, particularly around definitions and enforcement, to ensure there are no loopholes that would allow the tobacco industry to continue the sale of these flavored products. The American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network looks forward to the city of Tempe developing a strong ordinance that prohibits the sale of all flavors across all tobacco product lines with a strong enforcement mechanism, and urge this committee to continue this process to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Our next speaker is Joyce. Joyce, can you make yourself known in the chat if you are here? And Joyce, I don't have a last name for you on the comment card. All right, we're going to be moving on to John McElligott. John, I'm unmuting you now.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. My name is John McElligott. I'm the Executive Director of the Maricopa County Medical Society, dating back to 1892. Our members are practicing physicians, retired physicians, medical students, and residents throughout the Valley, representing upwards of about 12,500 or 13,000 practicing physicians in Maricopa County. The Medical Society promotes excellence in the quality of care and the health of the community. And that is why today we urge the committee to end the sale of all tobacco products in all flavors in the city of Tempe, with no exception. That's outlined in the draft ordinance language that was presented to the committee. Furthermore, we urge the committee to take all necessary steps to ensure that the language, definitions, licensing provisions, and enforcement procedures that are in the final draft ordinance that are brought before the full council are fully and totally in support and consistent with the ordinance objective that will end the sale of all products and all flavors. I would like to add that we're in full concurrence with the Cancer Society, Arizona's concern about smoking, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, and many, many other organizations, dozens in a coalition in support of this ordinance. I would like to say that we take a position of health and public health and safety and the best health care possible for patients in the community over the argument about the need to sell additional products. And we're fully in support of the recent review by the FDA about the Juul decision, recognizing that those products have played a disproportionate role in the rise of youth vaping. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, John.
Our next speaker is Brianna Miller. Brianna, I'm unmuting you now.
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon, council members. I'm Brianna Miller. I'm a health policy specialist at Children's Action Alliance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. So Children's Action Alliance works directly with communities most impacted by pervasive health inequities. Our goal is to realize an Arizona where all children can thrive. You have no doubt already heard from and will continue to hear today from health, education, youth service organizations, community advocacy organizations, youth, and parents from Tempe across the state who passionately support a flavors ordinance like the one before you today. As an organization concerned with the health and well-being of children in Arizona, CAA supports a comprehensive ban on the sale of all flavored tobacco products, cigarettes, e-cigarettes, cigars, mini cigars, and the endless list of products that contain flavors that we know are specifically designed to hook kids. In fact, in 2021, amidst the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, over 2 million youth reported using e-cigarettes, according to the National Youth Tobacco Survey, and 1 out of 6 Arizona high school students started using e-cigarettes and cite flavors as the reason for starting. Again, the health impacts of smoking traditional cigarettes are well documented, and research continually shows the connection between e-cigarettes and smoking traditional cigarettes, as well as the dangers of nicotine consumption for adolescents. While you may have heard and will continue to hear talk of tax revenue loss as a potential consequence of enacting this ordinance, a flavored tobacco ban could result in tremendous long-term healthcare savings, as smoking-related illness costs Arizona $2.38 billion each year. CAA urges the council to enact the strongest...
Brianna, can you get to the end of your remarks? We are out of time.
Yes, CAA urges the council to enact the strongest and broadest ordinance that will end the sale of all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products with no exceptions, establish a robust retail license, and bring the sale age in line with the federal statute from age 18 to 21, as outlined in the draft ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Brianne.
Our next speaker is Mark Miller. Mark, I'm unmuting you now.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I appreciate the time. Again, my name is Mark Miller. I represent the Arizona Food Market Alliance. We have about 125,000 employees. Previous to doing this job, I have a history of about 37 years in the alcohol business, including beer and wine. And we have always been committed, and we were a member of AFMA, and we've always worked hard to do the right thing in that industry. And I did want to make one clarification, please. One of the previous guests had said that HB, the House Bill 2505 that we supported, it had preemption. It did not have preemption. The one we were supporting and pushing through was just to raise the age to 21. We've worked with other cities and tried to be useful, and we do share in your vision of protecting the youth and doing our best. And I think we're pretty proud. I think the last time you heard that the FDA did over 40 searches, and none of our members, which include the grocery and the convenience store members, were cited. We do have the training in place. We've invested in technology that will read the strip on the back of the driver's license. We're also currently working with the Arizona Department of Transportation as they redo the licenses next year to ensure that we have the technology in place to be able to verify the age, and that our scanners will be able to record that we did check it and did verify that they were over the age of 21. We would just ask to please be part of your stakeholder process. We've, again, worked with 3 other cities that have put them in place, but to date, they haven't been able to find the enforcement. They too, like you in the Worreach, were trying to use the policeman in your city, and it's very difficult at this point to get the resources that you need in the manpower, the equipment, and the training. So again, that really might not in the long term be the right direction. And then again, for the licensing fees, it takes a lot of people and different processes to be able to do that. Again, we'd like to work with you and help do it. So when it is set up and initiated, that it has been well thought out and it will work for your city and for our members. Thank you for all the support that you do for Tempe, but we represent every city in the state, and we would like to include a state solution, and that will continue to be our goal. Thank you for your time, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Mark.
Our next speaker is Carl O'Kelly. Carl, go ahead and give your comment, please.
My name is Carl O'Kelly, an advisory board member of Arizonans Concerned About Smoking, headquartered in Mesa, Arizona. Please reject attempts to exempt, carve out, grandfather, etc., any segment of flavored tobacco peddlers. There must not be any capitulation to anyone, businesses or otherwise, seeking special privileges instead of full and immediate compliance with the ban on sales of all flavored tobacco products. I urge the committee to end the sale of all flavored tobacco products with no exceptions as outlined in the draft ordinance language presented to the committee. Please take all necessary steps to ensure that the language, definitions, licensing provisions, and enforcement procedures in the final draft ordinance brought before the full council are fully and totally in support and consistent with the ordinance objective that will end the sale of all flavored tobacco products. I also hope that this ordinance will not suffer the fate, and this is just by way of analogy, of the Arizona stupid motorist law, which has been a fact for 20 years, but never a reality. No one, especially journalists, has been ever been able to find a ticket or a bill issued to someone who drives into a flooded wash, let alone who had to pay the bill for it. Thank you in advance for establishing the Tempe tobacco regulation ban on the sale of all flavored tobacco products.
Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
Next speaker is Claudia Rodas. Claudia, it's set to go.
Good afternoon. I'm hearing some feedback.
Claudia, I'm going to try to mute you. I think you have 2 devices that are open, so I will mute one of those devices. Claudia?
Yes.
We still have a little feedback for you.
You want to split me, and I'm going to try to see where I have something, another one open.
Although, do we want to go ahead and skip her and try somebody else and let her work on her feedback?
Yeah, looks like Claudia's having some technical issues. We'll get back to her. Our next speaker is Jamie Rojas. You are unmuted.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members and committee members. My name is Jaime Rojas. I'm the former president and CEO of the California Hispanic Chambers of Commerce. And you might be asking, why is California calling in on Arizona issues? Let me tell you, for the past 5 years, our members, which make up 65 chambers throughout California, have dealt with these various and misinformation tactics of flavor bans. One of the most important issues here, and if you ask any of the groups supporting this, bans do not work. Just last year, the Yale University, financed by the FDA's dollars, showed that the oldest flavor ban in California, which is the San Francisco one, indicated that nothing happened in regards to the ban. As a matter of fact, what happened was an increase of youth tobacco, regular cigarette usage instead. We all know that most of these products are being bought online, and the focus should be on online sales. As someone mentioned before, we saw what the FDA had just announced about Juul. And on top of that, this ordinance goes above and beyond vaping and electronic products. The focus, if that should be on this, as well as the focus should be on a statewide ban. The problems happening in California is local government taking initiative and doing very different bans throughout each and every city in the past 5 years, making it confusing for customers as well as retailers. And the other additional thing, if the committee does care about health youth, they should also be looking at alcohol, which is flavored, marijuana, which is flavored, fast food products, which uses flavoring in desserts, that also increases a lot of health issues. The only reason this is being brought up is because of money. The ability of using the master settlement agreement and abusing it by the public health department in hiring a lot of these organizations to lobby instead of putting the money to code enforcement and education at the local level. We urge you to sit down with the business community, wait for and develop a statewide program and not go city by city developing confusing and even unlawful ordinances. We thank you for your listening to this opportunity.
Thank you, Jaime.
Next up, we have Stephanie Siete.
Hi, this is Stephanie Siete. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. I represent and wear so many caps. I do work locally with tobacco prevention and have done so for the last 20 years in Mesa Community Bridges, as well as with the Tempe Coalition. I volunteer for tobacco-free kids and parents against vaping and e-cigarettes because I know that this is such an issue. And I think it's great that you called me right after Jaime, because I wanted to piggyback on what he was saying is, yes, this is all about money. Tobacco being the 6th largest company in the world. They're a very large industry and they always win. And, you know, by 10 seconds, I'd say there's no need for flavors, period. Tobacco's been successful for decades without flavors. They are the most preventable cause of death. We don't need flavors that lure children. And that's exactly what this does. The majority of kids, why they try this stuff is because it's flavored. We saw a massive decline. And yes, just like Jaime said, education is important as well. We saw a decline with cigarette use with kids, but then along came these slick, savvy, secretive products that have thousands of flavors and kids started using. Removing Juul is removing one of thousands of products. It's a step in the right direction. The FDA is taking a good example and lead, and Tempe can be on the right side of history by doing the same thing, choosing life, choosing children over money. We need to protect our kids. I'm the biggest advocate for kids, and I don't even have kids, and I do all this education for them, and they're always like, wow, they didn't even understand the manipulation and the lies behind tobacco and marketing and things like Juul, which are now being removed because they were proved to lure our kids. I know kids submitted comment cards that are 15 and 16 years old today because they're disappointed and that they aren't prioritized with their health. So yeah, tobacco, it's a money-making machine. We need to prioritize our kids. You know, when we talk about how bans don't work, neither does age restriction. Alcohol, yes, just there are flavors. We're luring people. And what we really need to do is protect. This isn't just about children. This is about lives. This is about a city like Tempe taking a leadership role and protecting life. So I just hope that you really support the removal of all flavored tobacco products off store shelves. 300 other cities have been successful around this country, 5 states. Let's follow that lead and protect our kids. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cynthia Stremba. Cynthia, are you still with us? Cynthia, I see you on your screen, but it looks like we're not getting a response. Let me check the chat. All right, we're going to move on to our next speaker. That's going to be Joseph Yuhas. Joe, I am trying to find you to unmute you, and here you go. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Council members Garland and Navarro. Thank you so much. Joseph Yuhas. I'm a 26-year resident of Arizona. I live in the Tempe suburb of Phoenix, and I'm delighted to be here today to once again urge you to be bold here and take some definitive action to save the next generation from a lifetime of nicotine addiction. You've heard at 4 previous meetings before you and your colleagues, representatives of the tobacco industry have, and they're going to testify again today, and in fact they have, that this issue needs to be handled at the federal level. In fact, at your most recent meeting of this committee last month, Haley Hodges stated, and she stated again today on behalf of the National Association of Tobacco Outlets, quote, the FDA continues to conduct its review and has stated its plans to complete the review by 2023. So this means all flavored products that may be of interest to you are being removed from the market. The FDA and the city of Tempe should allow that process to continue, unquote. Okay, so now just yesterday, the FDA, after years of research, deliberations, public comments, issued a ruling ordering all Juul products off the market. Products made by a company that is the subject of a federal civil lawsuit that the Tempe Union High School District is a part of. And also reports are that this company is under criminal investigation. So what did Juul and the industry do? It sought to stay on the ruling, and it's now appealing the FDA action. So leave it up to the FDA and the federal government has been a common mantra of the tobacco industry because the industry knows it can defer, delay, stall, and perhaps even quash action as it continues to profit from our kids and their health. As you've also heard now at 4 previous meetings before you and your colleagues, representatives of the tobacco industry will testify, and they'll do it again today, and you have heard this again today, that the issue needs to be addressed on a statewide basis. That's what Mark Miller of the Arizona Food Marketing Alliance said in his testimony before you last November when he stated, quote, I believe the regulation of tobacco products should be done at the state level. That's also what you heard from Amanda Gray of the Arizona Petroleum Marketers Association in her comment card at that same meeting where she said, quote, we agree with and have supported legislation supporting regulation of tobacco and vapor retailers at the state level. So what did the industry do? It advocated for legislation that did little to protect the interest of our kids, but protected the interest of the industry by criminalizing kids, the kids they target with kid-friendly flavors, who purchase and use these products, but legislation with limited restriction and enforcement directed at retailers. Think about it, criminalizing our kids with records that could keep them out of college or getting a job. And an additional feature of the industry-backed legislation, local preemption that would prohibit you from acting in the best interest of Tempe and its residents, parents, schools, and most importantly, its kids. Preemption that would have prevented us from even having this conversation today. So leave it up to the state, again, has been a common mantra for the tobacco industry. The industry knows that is where it can best protect its interest and continue to profit from our kids at the expense of their health. This draft ordinance before you represents a rejection of those mantras. It's a solid start poised to match your solid leadership on the local level. On the local level where increasingly stuff gets done. It's a start because it firmly calls for the end of the sale of all flavored products with no exception and a licensing requirement that enforces it. But it's only a start. With the objective to end this, I'll wrap up right now. With the objective to end the sale of these harmful products clearly defined, it's critical that all facets of this ordinance language, definitions, and enforcements are in sync and conform to the ordinance objectives. Our coalition looks forward to working with you to put kids first.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks, everyone, and I appreciate your patience with us. We have a lot on the agenda today, so we just want to make sure that we get every voice heard. We're going to go back. First off, the last person on my regular list is Nicole Olmstead. I'm going to unmute you, Nicole, and please give your comment now.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Olmstead. I'm the Government Relations Regional Lead for the American Heart Association. I live in Tempe. My children go to school in a Tempe Elementary or Tempe Union High School District over at McClintock, and the American Heart Association is located in Tempe. So we are very vested in this effort. I'd like to address a couple of things that you have heard so far. The tobacco folks on the call have indicated that they want a strong, robust stakeholder meeting. We would agree, but we want to make sure that the strong, robust stakeholder involvement doesn't drag this out to where they start working on preemption at the state again. And make no mistake, that is the intention. They have been working on preemption for the past 4 years. And we're working on preemption up until even today, I assure you, because today the legislative session is still going on. I would like to also mention address the fact that you were told earlier that this should be addressed by the FDA. I would like to make note that it took 10 years for the FDA to even start to regulate these products, well past their court-ordered deadline. And they only did so at the lawsuit because of lawsuits from organizations like the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, and the American Lung Association. Tobacco has survived for so many decades, so many years with just a tobacco flavored product. There is no need to have flavored, candy flavored, fruity flavored products, menthol flavored products out there on the market to attract our kids. We would encourage you to include strong definitions, a robust compliance process, and eliminate the sale of all flavors and on all tobacco products, including electronic cigarettes. And thank you very much for taking the comments of us this today.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. Now we're going to get to some folks that we weren't able to get to at the top of the meeting. This could be Philip Carpenter. Philip, I'm trying to find you now. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good afternoon, members of Tempe's Human Services and Safety Committee. My name is Philip Carpenter, and I am the Executive Director of Arizonans Concerned About Smoking. I am here today representing Arizonans Concerned About Smoking and our President Emeritus, Dr. Leland Fairbanks, a 37-year resident of Tempe. I too was a resident of Tempe from 1994 until I got married and moved to Chandler in January of 2006. Tempe again has a unique opportunity to demonstrate tobacco control leadership, as you have often done here in Arizona. It is long overdue to start reversing the worsening youth e-cigarette epidemic and stop tobacco companies from using appealing flavors to lure kids into a lifetime of addiction. According to Campaign for Tobacco for Kids, there are 115,000 kids now under 18 and alive in Arizona who will die prematurely from smoking. This is remarkably like what big tobacco has done in years past. It comes at a critical time with growing concerns among health experts that smoking and vaping can worsen the effects of COVID-19. Ending the sale of all flavored tobacco products is a necessary step to reverse skyrocketing youth use of e-cigarettes and tobacco products and help prevent nicotine from addicting a new generation. It is never beneficial for a young developing brain to become addicted to anything. A recent study also concluded that e-cigarette use might be related to sleep deprivation in young adults. According to Monica Caffey, chair of the Behavioral Health Commission of San Bernardino County, in a recent My Turn guest commentary, in addition to harming teens developing lungs, these tobacco products contain enormous amounts of nicotine that completely rewire adolescents' developing brains, creating irreversible cognitive changes and potentially leading to years of further addiction. The stakes of this fight could not be higher. As we fight for our kids, tobacco companies will try to convince us their candy-flavored tobacco products are not aimed directly at kids, but we know better. It is vital that your ordinance include language that ends the sale of all tobacco and e-cigarette products, including fruit-flavored cigars, minty menthol cigarettes, flavored chew tobacco, and all other flavored products that hook kids and put them on a path to a lifetime of nicotine addiction. By pursuing and achieving a total flavored tobacco ban here in Tempe, we will help young people break free from tobacco, prevent more kids from ever becoming addicted, and prevent a generation from suffering a lifetime of most negative health consequences. Please know that ACAST strongly supports a flavored tobacco ban in all of Arizona. Tempe, again, can be an Arizona tobacco control leader and demonstrate that it can be done now, starting in Tempe. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.
Great. Our last speaker who will be giving comment personally will be Claudia Rodas. Claudia, I hope your technical issues have been resolved. I'm going to unmute you.
Yes. Everything okay? Can you hear me fine? Perfect. Thank you. Sorry about that. Well, good afternoon, Councilmember Scarlett and Navarro and Tempe City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today and hearing all of this testimony. I know some of this has been repetitive and you're hearing it again and over again, but we want to just make sure that you understand that there is support in the community to address this issue. And so we are so thankful that you have continued over the past months addressing this issue. I am representing the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. We are the leading advocacy organization working to reduce tobacco use and its deadly consequences in the United States and around the world. We support the concepts in the draft ordinance on creating a tobacco retail license and restricting all flavored tobacco products, and we look forward to continuing to ensure strong language that best meets the stated objective. I just want to quickly address a few comments that have been made, and it seems like a lot of them have been addressed by some of my colleagues, but a couple of them, hopefully as I go through them, have not been, this won't be repetitive. There was a comment that was made about the federal government taking care of these issues, aside from what Nicole Olmstead with the Heart Association mentioned. It does, historically, when the FDA does make a decision, there's always additional time that is added when the tobacco industry then files lawsuits, just as we saw this morning when Juul's application was denied by the FDA, and now they have quickly went back and filed a lawsuit in courts, which will hold up this decision being fully implemented. There was also a comment that was made about the pre-market tobacco applications and how there have been hundreds, almost thousands of these denied and only a few of them approved. I just want to make sure that it is clear that while the FDA has approved a small number of applications, those brands make up the majority of the products sold on the market. In regard to the comments that was made by the representative of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the tobacco flavor law in San Francisco did reduce flavored tobacco use overall and prompted quit attempts and reduced consumption, and its impact varied by people's characteristics and the product category, and we are happy to share that information. If passed, Tempe will be the first city in Arizona that will join hundreds of other communities across the country in protecting their youth from the dangers of tobacco products, and it's time to protect the youth and your most vulnerable populations in the city of Tempe. Thank you once again for your time and your leadership.
Thank you, Claudia.
Our next and final speaker will be Jamie Peters.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you so much for letting me speak today. I will definitely be pretty quick. I'm here to represent PAVE. And on a personal note, I am also a parent of teenagers who have used nicotine products through vape devices. My son started in middle school. He is currently 19. He quit about 2 weeks ago. We've been in the ER and urgent care 4 times in the past 2 weeks. He has been on 2 courses of steroids, breathing treatments every 4 hours, and different prescriptions to help his cough. We need to get these flavors are luring our children, and we need to get them off the shelves. They're making these kids addicted for life. We need to get them out of their hands. I know in the Valley, my kids and their friends can go into any vape shop, and most of the time they will be able to purchase without ask for ID, and that's how they get into the hands of the children. And I just, on a personal note, I just struggling with my child and his health, and I just wish it never happened in the first place. And I thank you for your time. Just wanted my quick story to be heard.
Thank you, Jamie.
All right, folks, that is the end of the in-person comment portion. I'm just checking I'm checking one more time in the chat. Okay, we have Cynthia Stremba. Okay, let's get to Cynthia. I'm going to unmute you now. Cynthia, it might be a technical difficulty on my end, but I cannot unmute you. Yeah, I do apologize. It looks like the system is not connecting for you. So we're going to have to move on to the reading into the record portion of the meeting. And if you want to try calling back and putting that into the chat, we'll try to get you in to make personal comment. Okay, council members, I have 35 comment cards to read into the record. First one is from Akil Atli. and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing these names correctly. I'm reading off of our comment card that's sent into our system. So Akil's comments are, my family and I have been business owners for over 20 years. I currently verify via my POS system all customer IDs, so only legal adults purchase products. We pay taxes and have employees. A city of Tempe menthol ban will be terrible and only increase crime and cause customers to go to other cities close by. I think the city should focus on more important things during this economically challenging time. Our next commenter is Mo Awape. Hello, as a longtime business owner of multiple tobacco stores in Tempe, I cannot stress enough how short-sighted a citywide ban on menthol would be. First of all, with all the close cities that would still sell menthol, this would create problems and not prevent menthols from getting to customers. It would also continue to punish hardworking business people like myself in very hard times. We take selling tobacco products very seriously and invested a lot of money in systems that scan IDs so only adults get these products. There are more important issues for the city we love to focus on. Barbara Nicholson Brown with Together AZ and Art of Recovery. On the 4 previous occasions on which this issue has been before you and your colleagues, Big Tobacco and those who do their bidding have regularly made statements they attempt to disguise as facts, but the true facts say otherwise. For example, as part of the meeting of this committee on November 17th of last year, Carlos Coe of Mr. Vape USA submitted a comment card stating, and I quote, flavor bans do not stop the distribution and flow of these products, but forces them into an underground black market with zero oversight and transparency. The fact is there is no evidence that flavor restrictions will lead to a black market. Tobacco companies have consistently exaggerated the risk of a black market to discourage governments from implementing effective tobacco control measures, making similar claims about the creation of a black market following tobacco tax increases. Study after study has shown that the industry's claims are overblown. The tobacco industry has a long history of telling inaccuracies, mistruths, and out-and-out lies to protect their commercial interests at the expense of public health. The process before this committee these past few months has been no different. I urge to allow the truth to prevail here. Please advance to the full council an ordinance to end the sale of all flavored tobacco and e-cigarettes. Jessica Carrasco from Sky High Smoke Shop in Tempe. Hello. First off, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me to speak my opinion verbally in front of the city council member. Myself and many of my family members have been small business owners in the tobacco industry for over 15 years and have always been very responsible in terms of keeping the community happy and healthy. Although I do believe Tempe has a very big problem in the community, but unfortunately it has nothing to do with menthol or flavored tobacco. Statistically, the youth is staying away from tobacco as a whole versus making it worse. Also, the fact that the pandemic did not help the economy whatsoever, the city is willing to push more and more businesses to neighboring cities by making it harder for Tempe residents to buy what products they want and choose. The city and members of the city do not deserve to struggle even more because of a mediocre law change. I do appreciate your time and hope you will take what we all say into consideration. Think of the people and small businesses of Tempe and how much this will affect them when making their decisions. Thank you kindly, Jessica Carrasco. Bernice Garver from Flagstaff. I'm Bernice Carver and I volunteer with ACAS, Parents Against Vaping, and other health organizations who are battling for the health and lives of our children against those who profit from addiction. I have many friends and family in Tempe and the Valley. Our family has suffered greatly from devastating tobacco addiction disease and deaths brought on by an industry that has no shame or conscience for the pain and financial cost it creates in society. Over the past 6 months at 4 separate meetings before you and your colleagues, tobacco industry representatives have provided testimony that is at best inaccurate, but most often simply untrue. For example, at the meeting of this committee on November 17th, Carlos Coe of Mr. Vape USA submitted a comment card stating, and I quote, smoking kills, vaping saves lives, and this can be factually backed when the politics are stripped from the argument. As a former tobacco cessation specialist for the Coconino County Health Department, I can attest to the opposite. Once people become addicted to vaping, in my experience, they have a harder time quitting nicotine because their levels usually increase, not decrease. Also, when people start vaping, the lungs do not get the chance to heal what is so important in tobacco cessation. The vaping industry is in business to sell more nicotine, not put themselves out of business. The way they do is to get as many people hooked as possible, and they have been targeting kids. Here are the facts. A 2020 Surgeon General's report on smoking cessation concluded that there is presently inadequate evidence to conclude that e-cigarettes in general increase smoking cessation. Moreover, when e-cigarette aerosol contains fewer chemicals and toxins compared to cigarette smoke, They are still harmful with harmful chemicals in e-cigarette aerosol. E-cigarettes can expose users and those exposed to the vapor to toxic and carcinogenic chemicals such as formaldehyde and lead. E-cigarettes have been found to increase heart rate and blood pressure, and initial research indicates that the aerosol can damage DNA in the respiratory system. But because the products are relatively new, little is known about the long-term effects of e-cigarette use. There is not enough information to assess the long-term impact on cancer and heart disease risk. Lori Clark from the Arizona Oral Health Coalition. I have dedicated my 39-year dental hygiene career to promoting improved health and well-being for youth in Maricopa County. It is a no-brainer to advance an ordinance to address the sale of flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products in Tempe that target its kids. Over 80% of kids who have used tobacco started with a flavored product. Half of high school smokers use menthol cigarettes. We rely on our leadership of Tempe to do the right thing to achieve a better quality of life for all in our community, especially our youth. Thank you, Lori Clark, registered dental hygienist. Sharon S. Doyle from the Tempe Coalition. The city of Tempe and the community have a long history of supporting its youth. As an example, Tempe for 3 years in a row was named as one of the best 100 best communities for young people by the America's Promise Alliance. And why was that? Because as the Alliance president stated, these 100 outstanding communities refuse to let the economic and other challenges they face determine the fate of their youth. Instead, they are working together to ensure that all the younger people can reach their full potential. The Mayor's Youth Council provides a youth voice in local government. CARE 7 has youth specialists in each of our high schools and several middle schools. Free pre-K and Experience Corps all support Tempe's youth. And now I, as an individual and community member, am asking you, Councilmember Joel Navarro and Councilmember Doreen Garland, to protect and support the health of our youth by being the advocates for banning the sale of all flavored tobacco in the city of Tempe. Floyd Galloway. As a parent, grandparent, and community servant who used to be a longtime resident of Tempe and still frequents Tempe often, I urge the committee to end the sale of all tobacco products and all flavors in Tempe with no exception as outlined in the draft ordinance language presented to the committee. Please take all necessary steps to ensure that the language definitions, licensing provisions, and enforcement procedures in the final draft brought before the full council are fully and totally in support and consistent with the ordinance objectives that will end the sale of all products and all flavors. Tempe has been a leader in a number of health and community issues. This is an opportunity for it to continue to be a leader. 80% of all youth that use tobacco products started with flavored tobacco products. I know as a youth, that is how I started, with cool menthol cigs and cherry flavored cigars. Thank God I was able to stop the habit early on and not have it affect my health. Thank you, Floyd Galloway. The next one, I'm going to have my fellow council aide, Sarah. You're going to start with Kim Gill.
Kim Gill is representing the city and state of resident phone. We've been business owners in the community for many years and feel that a menthol ban in Tempe does not make sense. It would only encourage the sale of menthol products in other cities. We age verify and only sell our tobacco products to adults. In our opinion, this will hurt the community and our business. Quick and easy, Shell, Tempe, Arizona. Next person, Gabrielle Glissmeyer, representing National LGBT Cancer Network. Human Services. My name is Gabrielle Glissmeyer. I'm a project specialist at the National LGBT Cancer Network. As an organization, we strongly support the proposed policy to ban all flavored tobacco and nicotine products in Tempe. For decades, the tobacco industry has targeted the LGBTQ and community through marketing campaigns, sponsoring pride festivals, and marketing menthol tobacco products to us. Flavored tobacco, including menthol, continues to pose a threat to the LGBTQ plus health. As a community, LGBTQ plus people use menthol flavored tobacco products at higher rates than non-LGBTQ plus people. These rates are often higher for queer and trans people of color, of those living in the intersections of these identities. Research shows that those who experience more discrimination are more likely to smoke and use menthol products specifically. Unfortunately, transphobia, queerphobia, racism, and other forms of oppression continue to keep the LGBTQ plus community from achieving optimal health and equity. Flavored tobacco is and continues to be LGBTQ plus health and social justice issue. As a leading LGBTQ+ health organization working to improve the health of all LGBTQ+ people, we urge the committee to pass this policy and to take all necessary steps to ensure the language, definitions, licensing provisions, and enforcement procedures in the final draft ordinance brought before the full council are fully and totally in support and consistent with the ordinance objectives that will end the sale of all products in all flavors. Thank you. Next comment card, Jamal Hage, Rollins Market, Tempe. I disagree with the banning menthol cigarettes because it will disadvantage my business, Tempe, versus those cities in close proximity. Please contact me if you have any questions. Jade Izette. I favor Tempe banning all flavored tobacco as they target children and should be banned. Ted Paracher, HQ Vape and Smoke, Tempe, Arizona. I have been a smoke shop owner in Tempe since 1989. Headquarters Vape and Smoke. I experienced firsthand the devastating impact when Tempe was early to enact the no smoking indoors policy. While other cities still allowed indoor smoking, all Tempe businesses bars suffered and several closed as patrons went to other cities like Mesa, Phoenix, Scottsdale. Unfortunately, as this proposal will only affect Tempe businesses, it will force all users of flavored tobacco products to purchase their items outside of Tempe or online, but still be able to consume it in Tempe. I stress again, this will only impact local businesses. Let the FDA finish the regulation process that is underway so we can operate in a fair market instead of just pushing business customers and revenue away from Tempe. I know this proposal has good intentions. We agree no minors should have access to any tobacco products and strongly enforce it while also being regularly tested. Unfortunately, history shows that bans just cause more problems, create black market opportunities where items will continue to be sold out of backpacks in restrooms with no ID checking or tax collection. This is proven in the past with alcohol and weed and other cities that try this type of flavor bans. Sales go up in nearby areas and trafficking exists. This is a short-sighted bill that is using out-of-date data when the age to buy was 18. The increased volume of these sales, these new products, vape in particular, are because of customers making informed choices of less harmful products. I see and hear it daily from customers who enjoy a better way to inhale. The sense of smell and taste is back. They don't need or smell like ashtrays. Vape products have the ingredients listed with the measured amount of nicotine, whereas traditional cigarettes do not have either. By banning flavors, it will reduce the number of less harmful products by 90%, but only reduce the number of traditional cigarettes and such by 15%. If this ban goes through, adults in Tempe will have to travel out of the city or face reduced options of mostly older style tobacco products, mainly cigarettes. The ban will help increase cigarette sales in Tempe. I strongly oppose this bill and urge you to reject this draconian nanny state politics that will anger people more about government officials telling them what they can and can't inhale. Let the FDA finish its regulatory process and focus on more important issues that affect everybody in Tempe. If any of you are curious or would like to discuss further, please stop by or call. With respect, Ted Parcher.
All right. I have next comment from Shelly Kittner. She's from the Human Services in Tempe, Arizona. And she writes, I am requesting the ban of all flavored tobacco. I feel it causes premature illness and addiction. Thank you. Next comment is from Kylie. And her comment is, my name is Kylie. My mom is speaking. I am 14 and have been offered flavored vape many times at school since 5th grade. My brother is older and his friends all do it and have been sick and some passed away. Please stop selling flavored vape and e-cigarettes to teenagers. It makes them so sick. Next, we have the comment from Stacy Langer from Human Services in Tempe. And she writes, I am Stacy Langer with Parents Against Vaping, a national organization committed to attacking the epidemic of youth e-cigarette use with members in all 50 states, including Arizona and Tempe. Today's hearing will be no different than the previous 4 meetings in which lobbyists for big tobacco make their pitch to protect their commercial interests. For example, Today, you may hear statements about the adverse economic impact the proposed flavored ordinance will have on the city of Tempe. Statements like the one made by Trish Hart, lobbyist for the Arizona Food Marketing Alliance, who stated to this committee on November 17th, and I quote, "This will affect taxes in Tempe for sure." With no facts provided to support the statement, this is just another example of baseless statements the tobacco industry has used over the years to protect industry interests at the expense of our kids. Simply put, Tempe tax revenue will remain unchanged. This ordinance will not ban tobacco-flavored products such as e-cigarettes, cigarettes, and cigars. Those products would remain on the market and be available to adult customers. What will be banned are the sale of products with flavors that mask the harshness of the unappealing tobacco taste to attract and hook kids. Products such as Captain Crunch and Cocoa Puffs e-cigarettes, grape-flavored cigars, and the tried and true minty menthol cigarettes. The convenience stores and other retailers that sell flavored tobacco products that Ms. Hart represents all sell a variety of other products. These stores will not go out of business or reduce the number of employees in the store. Most retailers do not rely on these products as their only or primary source of revenue and are able to adapt their product offerings. Consumers will shift their preferences and spend money on other purchases, including tobacco products that remain available for sale, as well as other goods and services. We should not rely on an industry with a long history of telling untruths or the studies it finds to determine the economic impact of tobacco policy, as they are biased and overstate the size of the impact. Studies that fail to take into consideration the favorable economic impact of driving down the youth-flavored tobacco products epidemic will have on healthcare and insurance costs now and well into the future. To reiterate, Tempe tax revenue will remain unchanged. But even if that were not the case, does Tempe and you as its elected leaders really want to rely on the bottom-feeding objectives of big tobacco for economic success and sustainability? Tempe continues to grow and evolve, preserving and strengthening its position as a center of learning and increasingly as a home to high-wage base industry jobs brought about by successful economic development strategies. To suggest the continuing sale of flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products designed to hook our kids is somehow integral to Tempe's economic prosperity is absurd. We are facing a public health crisis, and protecting our kids' health should be the top priority. While no one wants legitimate businesses to be harmed, we can't sacrifice the health of an entire generation of kids for an industry that has no regard for them, except for their contributions to the industry's bottom line. Next comment is from Ms. Victoria Lopez, who is a member of the Tempe Coalition and a parent. As a parent and member of the Tempe Coalition, I fully support the Tempe ordinance ending sales of all flavored tobacco products as it targets kids, such as my teenager, and causes premature illness and addiction, etc. Next comment is from Megan Lucero. She writes, I support the Tempe ordinance to ban the sale of all flavored tobacco products. Flavored tobacco hooks our kids on a dangerous product that causes health issues plus targets our youth with fun flavors. Kids don't feel like these products are bad or dangerous because they taste good and have fun names. What's even more sickening is adults selling flavored tobacco to kids. Adults are preying on minors, and tobacco companies are targeting them as well. I know firsthand how this can cause havoc, chaos, heartbreak, and distrust within the family unit. Our daughter was purchasing flavored vapes off Snapchat and meeting up with adults that are willing to drive all over town to sell these things to kids. This entire situation is so scary and dangerous. We need to ban the sale of all flavored tobacco products. Our kids are too young to understand the consequences, and adults selling these items to kids just don't care. Next comment is from Eric Osowski, who is speaking for himself and the youth of Arizona. He writes, menthol cigarettes, flavored electronic vaping devices, and flavored cigars are favorites among young new smokers. Menthol numbs the back of the throat, masking the harsh taste and feel of tobacco, and it's contributing to the addictiveness that makes tobacco use the primary cause of cancer and death from cancer. Cheap cigars and vaping that come in flavors like grape, Rocky Road ice cream, and honey maple also appeal to kids. The Tempe City Council will improve the health of our children and adults by approving a flavored tobacco ban in Tempe. It will reduce the tobacco addiction rates for the coming generation of youth and will reduce the cost of healthcare. I am a family physician. Thank you. Next comment is from Darlene Haney, who is a resident of Tempe. I fully support the proposed tobacco regulation ordinance. This completely addresses the health concerns I have about tobacco use in general, and specifically flavored e-cigarettes, which are particularly attractive to adolescents. Next comment is from Steve Perry, a Phoenix resident. He writes, ordinance and regulation of selling tobacco needs to be banned.
All right, so this is a comment from the professional firefighters of Tempe. As firefighters, we are committed to saving lives, and that's exactly what ending the sales of all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products in Tempe will do, save lives. The professional firefighters of Tempe were pleased to participate in the most recent meeting of the Human Services and Community Safety Committee in support of an ordinance to end the sale of these dangerous products in Tempe. We are encouraged the committee drafted a comprehensive ordinance that includes all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products with no exceptions. We approve and support the ordinance, hoping it will advance to the full city council for a vote. To be truly effective, the strongest and broadest ordinance will end the sale of all flavored tobacco products, to exclude any products such as flavored cigars, cigarettes, chewing tobacco, and other tobacco products will simply allow other avenues of flavored products to remain in Tempe retail shops so they can lure kids and create the next generation of nicotine addicts. None of these products have a place in our community. Please act on behalf of our kids. Make Tempe an example once again for communities in the rest of the state, just like when your predecessors made Tempe one of the earliest communities in Arizona to prohibit smoking in restaurants and public places, doing so years before the statewide ban went into effect. Much like 2 decades ago, this ordinance for Tempe is the right thing to do because it will save lives. Thank you for your consideration of this critical issue. Mike Redfern from Jackson Food Stores in Tempe. Broad flavor bans are introduced as a measure to introduce tobacco usage by minors. This broad ban impacts items that are not popular amongst teenagers. The CDC website states in 2021, less than 1 of every 100 middle school students and about 1 of every 100 high school students reported using nicotine pouches in the past 30 days. Nicotine pouches are not prevalent in teenage use. The ban would eliminate 93% of our nicotine pouches under the guise of reducing underage usage. According to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, youth menthol cigarette and cigar use are both at their lowest levels in a generation, at 0.8% in the nation. Jackson Food Stores and our associates are responsible retailers to take age-restricted products very seriously. Every store employee goes through a rigorous training process before being allowed to run a register. Complying with the law on age-restricted sales is a major topic in our training. We have a very strong track record with age-restricted compliance checks done by government entities, and we invest in third-party vendors to conduct monthly compliance checks on age-restricted sales at our stores. Any proposed ban will only drive adult tobacco consumers to neighboring communities where flavored tobacco products are sold, leaving businesses in Tempe disadvantaged. This would have a negative impact for all tobacco retailers in Tempe, who would not only lose out on the sales of banned items, but also lose out on the sales of fuel and other items these customers purchase. Though these lost sales will eventually lead to lower employment opportunities for the citizens of Tempe as well. Finally, while fuel prices are pressuring all the citizens of Tempe, adult tobacco consumers who reside in Tempe will be forced to travel further to illegally purchase their tobacco products. Jackson Food Stores fully supports the effort to keep tobacco products out of the hands of minors. We are industry leaders when it comes to training and monitoring our age-restricted sales. We cannot support any legislation that broadly outlaws tobacco items without any regard to responsible business owners and adult tobacco consumers of Tempe. James Robbins from the Cancer Support Community, Arizona. As a member of the senior staff at Cancer Support Community Arizona, on a daily basis, I see the pain and destruction wrought on those impacted by cancer. Lives, careers, and families can be ruined and even ended by the health, financial, and emotional impact of cancer. Our organization provides free psychosocial support services from those impacted by cancer, and we know that our services can be of great help. But even better if we could avoid people being diagnosed with cancer altogether. There is no doubt that smoking is the leading cause of many cancers, and studies confirm that flavored tobacco products are targeted at starting young people smoking earlier in their lives. What does that mean? The tragic fact that they may need our organization's services even sooner. We will always be here to help those impacted by cancer, but we want to stand with the rest of the community that is trying to prevent cancer from ever happening. Helping this Tempe resolution become reality could easily be the best work our organization does this year. I urge the committee to end the sale of all tobacco products and all flavors in Tempe with no exception, as outlined in the draft ordinance language presented by the committee. Please take all necessary steps to ensure that the language, definitions, licensing provisions, and enforcement procedures in the final draft ordinance brought before the full council are fully and totally in support and consistent with the ordinance objective that will end the sale of all tobacco products and flavors. Dr. Thomas Russell from the African American Christian Clergy Coalition. There needs to be a ban on all these types of products. The temptation and attraction, especially to flavored products, entices young children to seek ways on how to obtain them, most times illegally and involving various crimes to get the money. It also needs to be said that many of these stores are relatively close to schools and communities of people of color, the targeted audience. Please be the first in our state to take a stand and ban all of these products. Thank you. Kim Schultz. I support a Tempe ordinance to prohibit the sale of all flavored tobacco products. It is marketed towards children. Vaping is highly addictive and proven to cause many devastating health problems. April Schweikert. I am April Schweikert with Parents Against Vaping, a national organization committed to attacking the epidemic of youth e-cigarette use with members in all 50 states, including Arizona and Tempe. On the 4 previous occasions in which this issue has been before you and your colleagues, Big Tobacco and those who do their bidding have regularly made false statements to protect their commercial interests at the expense of our kids. For example, in testimony before this committee on November 17th, Maggie Goen of Kierst Vape stated, and I quote, "Vaping is 95% safer than smoking. The FDA recognizes they are good." She then doubles down, submitting a comment card that day stating, and again quoting Ms. Goen, "The FDA has recognized through scientific review that some vaping products are indeed beneficial for the protection of public health and do not appeal to youth." That is simply untrue and needs to be called out for what it is, a biased, self-serving opinion. The fact is that in a U.S. Surgeon General's report on smoking cessation released in January 2020, concluded that there is, quote, "There is presently inadequate evidence to conclude that e-cigarettes in general increase smoking cessation," unquote. Additionally, there is strong concern that e-cigarette use leads youth to start smoking. Studies have found that young people who use e-cigarettes are more likely to become tobacco smokers, and many are low-risk youth who would not have otherwise smoked cigarettes. One study found that youth who use e-cigarettes were 4 times more likely to try cigarettes. So when tobacco industry representatives make the outrageous statement that the FDA recognizes these products as good, can you honestly believe anything they say? Please advance an ordinance to the full council to end the sale of all flavored tobacco and e-cigarette products. An ordinance based on science and truth, not fiction and baseless propaganda. An ordinance that advances public health rather than protecting the interests of big tobacco at the expense of our kids. Jay Sidhu. The proposed ban only serves to limit the product choices of adult consumers. If adult customers cannot buy their preferred products in your stores, they will just go outside of the city to make their purchases. While there, they will also purchase gas, grocery items, and beverages. Worse yet, prohibiting these products could shift sales from law-abiding responsible retailers like us to potentially illegal sources who don't check IDs. Our family has owned this business many years, and this will hurt our family and the city. Jay, Pride Food Mart, Tempe, Arizona. Jim Singleton. To whom it concerns, my daughter volunteers for PAVE and let me know that I could send a comment card since I can't be there in person today. We urge you to stop the flavored vape and products with menthol because it's killing our kids and destroying their futures. It's been an ongoing battle. It's rampant and needs to be stopped before any more end up in the hospital. This has gone on too long and the kids are becoming addicted and having lifelong problems. Kids don't seem to care, it destroys them. We strive to get our point across. End all flavored vape sales in Arizona and save some families the horrible grief we've been through. Akash Tathi. As a business owner in Tempe for many years, I find this potential menthol ban to be bad for business and the community. It will encourage good behaviors only that Tempe businesses potentially lose customers to neighboring cities. This measure would negatively impact my business and employees. City leaders should focus on more important things during this economically uncertain and challenging time. Akash Tathi, TNB Shell, Tempe, Arizona. Ben Ulan. My name is Ben Ulan, and I would like to voice my support of the ordinance to ban the sale of all flavored tobacco products. I have seen the negative physical toll that these products have on my friends. I am scared for their lives and the lives of many others that may purchase these products. Banning the sale of all flavored tobacco products will save lives. Max Wallace. From the eyes of an enlightened 18-year-old, vape products are a death sentence, and it's a death sentence pointed at children. Vape products nowadays are in direct relation with every child's favorite flavors. From candies and fruits to Kool-Aids and cereals, vape products never fail to catch the eye of children. Vendors want us to believe that because an 18+ label is posted on all of their vape products, kids won't get a hold of them. It is simply impossible to keep a product that looks intriguing and pretty to children out of children's hands. Every day at school, when I or any friends walk into any of the bathrooms, there is always a minimum of 3 students vaping in the stalls. It's almost never the same 3 students either. They vape in bathrooms, in the parking lots, behind cars, behind buildings, and everywhere else they can think of where they won't be caught. Children get so addicted to their vapes that they completely lose sight of their own health and the laws around vaping. This isn't just a trend happening in high school either. The same exact situation occurred when I was in middle school. Extremely young children are hurting themselves with these products, and these vendors never seem to do anything about it. Between middle school and high school, there is one common factor. Every vape is a fruity, sweet flavor that children enjoy. Manufacturers of vape products continue to make and release new flavors that are directed at children. Yes, their products have a small 18+ label on them, but do the children who get a hold of the products know better? Vendors might as well have a label that says, "We don't care about the health and safety of your children" on them. Year after year, vendors continue to sell vape products knowing all well that they are directed towards children and never fail to end up in the hands of children. Vendors do not care about the health and safety of children. All vendors care about is making a pretty penny, refusing to acknowledge the stories of hospitalized and deceased children as a result of their urge to sell their precious vapes. Vaping is a deadly epidemic happening nearly everywhere, whether you realize it or not. Schools are constantly trying to eliminate vaping from their campuses by implementing new policies, but their policies always end up failing. This goes to show that there is only one way to solve this deadly situation: ban the sale of vape products directed at children. Felicia Wheeler, representing Sunshine Convenience Mart. As a citizen, as well as a manager of a privately owned convenience mart that specifically caters to low-income customers who do not have vehicles to purchase their preferred cigarette menthol, I believe this would be a very unjust and simply put bad move. Are we targeting for health, or are we targeting a specific group of people that smoke menthol? That's the question, because if it truly was for health reasons, then let's ban all cigarettes. Thank you, Felicia. Joyce, no last name.
Here, this is, she's been trying to get.
Okay, it looks like Joyce is here to comment in person, so we're going to unmute you. Okay, Joyce, I'm going to read your comment into the record. Please call me so I can speak. I'd like to comment on how all vape and e-cigarettes and all products are extremely harmful and addictive to our young kids and need to be stopped. Please stop selling them, because my children know several young teens who have been hospitalized and passed away. They say vape is the first drug. I've seen it over and over. These kids are hooked because of the flavors offered to them. They are curious, and before they know it, are poisoning their only bodies. From a very concerned mom in Arizona. That's the end, council members, of the comment cards that wish to be read into the record. We have a few attendees that would like to speak in person. We're going to start with Cynthia Stremba. Cynthia, you are ready to comment.
Are you able to hear me this time?
I can hear you.
Yay!
Yay.
Okay. My name is Cynthia Stremba. I'm representing Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes, or PAVE. We're a national organization and we have parents, volunteers around Arizona and here in Tempe. You've heard from some of them, and I know others are having trouble getting in. But e-cigarettes pose serious risks to the health and safety of children. And I urge you, the committee, to take a leadership position here in Tempe and end the sale of all flavored tobacco products with no exceptions. E-cigarettes are relatively new products, and time will continue to reveal just how serious the long-term health impacts will be on our children as they move into adulthood. What we do already know is scary enough, and as you likely know, the health risks continue to grow. Before vaping products came onto the market, there had been a 70% reduction in youth tobacco use. Now, e-cigarette use among youth is the same as cigarette use was in the early 90s. And the vast majority of nicotine users start before the age of 18 when they're just kids. PAVE represents so many families who have struggled with the challenges of nicotine addiction from e-cigarettes. Families who have children that have experienced nicotine-associated mood disorders like anxiety and depression, uncharacteristic aggressive behavior. Getting into fights and punching in walls is a very surprisingly common behavior we hear about, as is stealing to pay for the vapes, and a decline in academic performance, a rejection of family and friends, and progressive substance use. It's really so heartbreaking to speak with parents who say they no longer recognize their son or daughter. Local government is in a unique position to act in the interest of their community. No decision has been made by the FDA on the biggest market shares of e-cigarettes. FDA has stated that they won't be finalizing their decisions until 2023. And then even after decisions are made, delays can be expected. Tempe can prevent thousands of kids becoming addicted to nicotine by acting now. Please take all necessary steps to ensure that the final draft ordinance that's brought before the full committee is consistent with ending the sale of all products and all flavors. Now's the time to now is the time to protect our children. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Our next and final commenter will be Samuel Nito.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Samuel Nieto, and I represent Southwest United Latino Veterans. I served on the USS Abraham Lincoln, stationed in Everett, Washington, from October of 1997 to October of 2001 as a DC-3 firefighter. I am here today because I oppose any type of flavored tobacco ban. I wanted to alert the members of the fact that many of my brothers and sisters that served in the military are also part of the recovery community. They have changed their lives for the better, and many of them have traded in drugs and alcohol for coffee and tobacco. As I am sure we are aware, menthol cigarettes are the cigarette of choice in communities of color. Regardless of how we personally feel about coffee and tobacco, please don't create a burden for folks already in a delicate balancing act in life by turning otherwise legal activity into an illegal one. And even if smoking flavored tobacco itself would not be a crime, you create a burden for people in recovery by forcing them to utilize an underground market or travel to other parts of Arizona or Colorado to purchase menthol cigarettes in bulk. If deterring underage youth from smoking is the goal, why don't we invest in education to achieve that goal? It would be money much better spent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel, and thank you for your service to the country.
You're
Paul,
welcome.
are we finished with all of our speakers and our comment cards?
Councilmember, I just have one to read on the record for an item that's not on the agenda. That is from Christy Buchanan.
Okay,
She's
thank
a
you.
resident of Tempe, and she'd like to make a comment on homeless shelter beds. Her comment is, in fiscal year 2020-21, the city of Tempe budgeted $5.57 million for homeless programs. How much of that total was used to create shelter beds? High, low, or no barrier? 2, how many shelter beds does the city of Tempe currently offer on a daily, nightly basis? 3, How many shelter beds are slated to open in Tempe by end of year calendar 2022? And that will be the new total. That's the end of the comment, and because this is not on the agenda, the committee will not be able to discuss this comment.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Paul. I just want to say that's a very robust discussion that will be coming up regarding our sale of tobacco ordinance and the proposal that we're looking at. I just want to say thank you so much to all of the people who took the time to write in a comment card or took the time to stay on the phone and give their comments to us personally. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody. And I appreciate everybody else who is still on board for us as we continue the rest of our meeting. So now that we are done with the comment cards, the next item on our agenda is item 4A1, and that is the presentation on the proposed ordinance to regulate the sale of tobacco through a tobacco seller license within the city of Tempe. And I'd like to welcome our Assistant City Attorney, Elizabeth Higgins, to give us our presentation. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for sticking with us.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Paul, did you want to bring up the PowerPoint? And I'll try to go through it as quickly as possible. And I should give fair warning, when I finalized and wrote part of this ordinance, I was in the midst of COVID. So there are some definite changes that need to be made. And so we're definitely open to that. So next slide. Okay, this just relates to the two council priorities that this proposed ordinance would be associated with. Next slide. A little bit of the background. On May 27th, I came before the committee to give a presentation on what a proposed ordinance could look like. And so this is the ordinance is now coming forward. It is a draft. It has two main focuses, one is to raise the age to 21 and over to purchase tobacco, and two was to prohibit the sale of flavored vape within the city of Tempe. Next slide. This is just a little bit of background. So some of these cities have already raised the minimum age to 21. Tucson also does have a tobacco retailer license in place. Phoenix had previously looked at flavored tobacco products, but did not move forward at that time. Next slide. All right, these are our current provisions in place. So we have a provision in our zoning and development code for a tobacco retailer. So a tobacco retailer in our zoning and development code is a person or business that primarily sells or offers for sale tobacco products. So this is things like hookah lounges, vape shops, cigar stores, anything like that that would be primarily selling tobacco to the public. And as part of the zoning and development code, these retailers are not to be located on a lot within 1,320 feet, which is a quarter mile, from any charter, private, or public school. Under the current provisions of the draft ordinance, I've kept this in place because the tobacco retailers that are listed in the zoning and development code, they have to get use permits associated with their separation requirement. And so I haven't fully broached that subject with Ryan Levesque, our planning director, to see if there's any changes that need to be made. So I wanted to sort of keep that part whole as we move forward through this process with stakeholders. So next slide. So the unlawful activities under the proposed ordinance, the first would be operating a business that sells tobacco without a valid license. So anyone that would be selling tobacco, whether you primarily sell tobacco or it's just incidental to your business, like if you're a Walgreens or a Circle K, you would be required to have a tobacco seller license within the city of Tempe. Another unlawful activity would be the selling of any tobacco product to any person under the age of 21. Selling or offering for sale any flavored tobacco product that delivers aerosolized or vaporized nicotine through the use of an electronic cigarette. So this is to directly affect the vaping, the flavored vape. And then to continue the sale of tobacco upon the suspension or revocation of a tobacco seller license by the city of Tempe. Next slide. So the proposed ordinance, oh, that didn't, it was supposed to have a nice little license thing there. So it has a little graphic since it's a lot of words. But it would establish a new tobacco seller license. It would provide for the administration of that license by the Tax and License Division. Let me see if I can. It provides that the police chief or their designee can render assistance in the enforcement of the ordinance. It requires that the license be displayed at the retail establishment, and it stipulates that any retailer that would be found selling tobacco products without a license would be ineligible to receive a license for a 3-year period. Next slide. So the proposed administration, before engaging in the sale of tobacco products, a tobacco seller would need to get his tobacco seller license from our Tax and License Division. This is one part where it's not, I misunderstood. So we would look to have a copy of their TPT license issued by DOR, not their tobacco retailer distributor license. That was a byproduct of the COVID there. But they would be submitting their license to Tax and License. Tax and License would be the one that would issue the license, renew the license, and establish the fee required to cover the cost of the administration of that license. And the tobacco licensee would have to provide training and swear to the fact that they would not be selling flavored vaping products within the city of Tempe. I think another area that we would add is that they would not be selling to anyone under the age of 21. Next slide. So the renewal of the license. So if the license has not been revoked within the last year, Tax and License would be able to renew that license annually. In working with Tax and License, they were okay with having one solid date in which licensees would be reissued every year. So that would be December 31st. So basically January 1, a tobacco seller within the city of Tempe, if they qualified, would get their new license. If they had any like I said, if they had the revocation within the last year or any outstanding fines, they would not be able to get that renewal. And if their license was denied, there's a process for notification and a process for an appeal. So next slide. Other requirements: raises the minimum age to 21 to conform with federal law, makes it unlawful to sell or offer sale cigarettes or of any flavored vaping products. And then also it requires some signage as well. Next slide. The penalties here. So if a court of competent jurisdiction or the licensing officer finds that the tobacco seller is in violation, then the licensee would be subject to, on the first violation, a fine of $500. On the second violation within a 24-month period, a fine of $1,000 and the suspension of their license for 30 days. And then on the third violation within the 36-month period, their license would be revoked. We could also add a fine to that third violation as well. And then if it is, the license is revoked or suspended, our Tax and License would be notifying them via certified mail and setting forth the cause of the denial. Next slide. The appeals process. So there is an appeals process set forth in the draft ordinance. So the licensee would receive notice of the appeals process. They would have to then contact Tax and License to exercise the appeals. The first appeal would be the hearing officer that was designated by the Financial Services Director. This would be a more informal process, although they could be represented by counsel. That should be counsel as CONSEL. That's another COVID brain fog. And then a written decision would be issued by tax and license within 5 business days of the hearing. Next slide. And then if the applicant had been denied administratively, if all of their remedies had been exhausted, they could, according to the draft ordinance, file an action in Maricopa County Superior Court to challenge the validity of their denial or suspension or revocation. Next slide. These are some of the exceptions and defenses. So it's not necessarily meant to go after the person that's under 21 who is purchasing. There are state provisions that are already in place. If there was a violation in that, the state law could apply for those at least under 18 at this point. And then nothing in the article prevents a provision of a tobacco product to any person as part of an indigenous practice or lawfully recognized religious, spiritual, or cultural ceremony. It also has an affirmative defense for those folks that are licensed if they are selling and they have been given an ID and they've reasonably relied on that as proof of age, even though it's not an actual valid ID for that person. They could use that as an affirmative defense. Next slide, please. Some additional code text amendments. So we're just making sure that in another section of code, we're defining that minimum sales age of 21, clarifying that in accordance with state law that an individual appearing to be under the age of 27 would be carded, and then just making some conforming changes to the zoning and development code with regard to that tobacco retailer. And then to also make sure that it's very clear that a tobacco retailer that primarily sells tobacco would also have to obtain a tobacco seller license in accordance with the proposed draft. Next slide. Looking for sort of a delayed effective date just so that staff is able to get everything in place. I've heard a couple of folks refer to the compliance structure that is associated here. We made it an annual renewal so that folks are having to do this yearly, that they're having to come in and get reissued because unfortunately we don't have a lot of extra staff to go out and proactively enforce this. So I wanted to have as many checks in place so that if a person or if a retailer is violating this, if a seller is violating it, then their license would be revoked and they would not be able to get a renewal for the following year. But also the delayed effective date just allows our tax and license staff and our PD to get everything in place in order to move forward with a ordinance if passed by council. Next slide. And then this is just next step. So finalizing a draft ordinance with your input. I've already made a few changes to the draft based on some of the feedback that I've just speaking again with staff and going back through it. There's a public input process. The rules of procedure require the council to look at that to our tip manual. It's our Tempe involving the public manual. So you could have stakeholder input. The Tempe forum is our online possibility, and then a public meeting. Consideration and an upcoming work study, then just to put it forward onto the regular council agenda, which would then require 2 public hearings and a 30-day period before it would go into effect. Next slide. I think it's the last any questions?
Elizabeth, thank you so much. And I understand the COVID brain and the COVID fog. I have COVID
real
right now, so I'm a little slower today than I usually am.
Yeah, it's very real.
Thank you so much for all the information that you provided and the listing of the ordinance. And I know that there's a lot of research that you've put together that you've done on this for the city. So I really appreciate that. I like the fact that we're cleaning this up and raising it to 21 like the federal laws. I appreciate that. And I do like the provisions in there. You know, I support the renewal of the license and all the dates and everything that you have already set. And the violations. I'm really glad that this, as was stated by other people in the comments about wanting to make sure that we had an opportunity for, a discussion with our stakeholders. So I'm glad that, that is part of our TIP, and you can find that actually on the City of Tempe's website if you want to look at the manual itself. But what that really just does is it just allows us to open this up so that stakeholders, residents, families, people have an opportunity to let us know what they think about this. So thank you so much. So when that get started. So if we move this forward out of this committee, it'll go to stakeholder meetings first.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely support that. I know that a lot of folks that spoke in the comment period expressed an interest in being involved, and I think the council aides could sort of set that meeting, and I would be happy to be a part of it. If anyone also wants to contact me, my name is right there, Elizabeth Higgins. It's Elizabeth_Higgins@tempe.gov. If you have any questions or concerns or anything like that. I do need to look at some of the definitions to make sure that everything is all cleaned up and everything like that. So it will be a little bit different probably when it comes forward for the stakeholder process. So we could work through that either in small groups or a larger group, however you guys decide to move it forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Joel, did you have any questions?
No, that's it. I mean, when we talk stakeholders, public forum, same thing or two different things?
The rules and procedures they're not specific. I know that they used to say a public hearing. I think they used to have to like a stakeholder meeting and a public hearing. I think we could talk about that going forward. Definitely the Tempe Forum is a nice, easy way to put a draft ordinance or a draft initiative out to the public and get their thoughts on that as well. So you might have some stakeholder process and then a public hearing, and along with that Tempe Forum. I think it will depend on what makes the most sense for you guys.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, thank you very much. Joel, if you don't have any other questions, I'd like to move that our council committee recommend this draft ordinance to be forwarded to the full council for consideration.
That would be after
the
input and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, after the meeting, after the stakeholder meetings. Right.
After the stakeholder meetings, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Okay, I don't think we have anything else. That was a lot. Elizabeth, thank you. Glad you're healed. Glad you're getting better. Appreciate
Yes,
the
thank
work. I look forward to working with you on this moving forward.
Yep. Happy to help in any way I can.
All
Yeah,
right, thank you.
And Dorian, I just want to stress, I know there's people out there. I mean, and thank you for everyone coming in and speaking, giving their comments, comment cards, all their good information. As both council members here, we are kind of helping facilitate process and this issue along. Obviously, doing our due diligence and doing our research, stakeholder meetings, public forum meetings. Council as a whole, as a work group, will be the final place where a decision will be made going forward. So I just want to be clear on that. So thank you.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Elizabeth. So we
Thank
will
you,
go
council
ahead
members.
thanks. We'll go ahead and move on to item 4A2. It's a presentation on the Tempe Town Lake water safety. And we have Police Commander James Swig, Police Lieutenant Tyler Watkins, Fire Deputy Chief Matthew Burns, and Assistant Fire Chief Anthony Butch will be here to give that presentation. Are they all here?
Deputy Chief Matt Burns is here.
All right, thank you so much. It's all yours now.
Okay, just a quick introduction. Like I said, Deputy Chief Matt Burns. I'm one of our shift responders. I'm also the manager of our dive team. I've been with the city 23 years. I was one of our technical rescue teams that does water rescue. I was on that team for 15 years and been a dive team member since 2003 as well. We had a water rescue operations brief. There we go. So thank you. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So we're going to go over the Town Lake operation overview for the Tempe Fire Medical Rescue Department. We are a member of the Phoenix Regional Dispatch Center under a regional IGA agreement, which is also known as the Automatic Aid Agreement. Under this agreement and this system, we adhere to the Phoenix Regional policies and procedures on all operations, including water rescue. Next slide, please. Tempe Fire Medical Rescue Department maintains a dive team for operations in all bodies of water within the city of Tempe, requests from the Automatic Aid Consortium. We also have 2 technical rescue teams trained in technical water rescue, which include water rescue operations. Keep in mind, water is not only water rescue is not only done at the Tempe Town Lake. We do have some residential lakes around, as well as canals, and we also assist with washes during monsoon season, which is upon us. Next slide, please. So an overview of operations at the Town Lake. Since 2019, we've had 35 incidents at the Tempe Town Lake related to water rescue operations. You can see the breakdown by each year. 5 of these have been body recovery operations. You can also see underneath the response time for the 35 incidents. The 50 percentile, which means in 50% of the time we get there in 3 minutes and 55 seconds, and 90% of the time we are there within 6 minutes and 12 seconds. Keep in mind, as the Tempe Town Lake is a pretty good sized body of water for being a man-made lake. We're relying on information from the witness as to where to go and which side of the lake to go to. So sometimes responses can be a little more extended than others, depending on where we have to go. Next slide, please. So we'll go over our dive team. We'll start with staffing. Our dive team consists of 12 divers, 6 dive tenders. We have 3 shifts, so we have 4 divers and 2 tenders on each shift, which allows us to complete dive operations. The dive team members are stationed at our Station 1 on Apache, Station 276 on Ash, and then Station 275 on Curry. Next slide, please. So the dive team supervision, it consists of the deputy chief, myself, which manages the program. We do have a dive team coordinator and instructor that helps with training and operations. So they're initially a dive team member, and then they have to have extra training. So they have to be brought up to dive master or an ERD supervisor status. And then from there, they're an SDI open water instructor. And then after that, they can get their ERDI instructor. And then they're able to teach our new divers. We also have an assistant dive team coordinator. And they have to be up to the level of dive master or ERDI supervisor. Our current dive team coordinator has been on the team since 2005, and same with our assistant dive team coordinator. Next slide, please. So the training initially, when we ask for interest from our department members, they have to go through a qualification test to even be considered. 500-yard swim, no gear or aids, and they have 16 minutes to complete it. We also do a 15-minute tread in water with both hands out of the water for the last 2 minutes. Each member will get 1 attempt to pass this test. Next slide, please. So our dive tenders, which are helping with the operation on the surface, they also have to do a swim test just in case they were ever get pulled into the water. We got to make sure they're able to swim efficiently. They do a 200-yard nonstop swim without aids. There's no time limit. They also have to do a 100-yard buddy tow, towing another person. They're both in flotation devices. There's no time limit. And they also have to do a 10-minute water tread as well. Next slide, please. So once we determine who's on the eligibility list and we decide to train divers, their initial training is Scuba Diving International SDI is their open water. That's a typical recreation water certification. Once they do that, we move them on to our emergency response diver certification. And then with that, they'll get a dry suit ops certification, which a dry suit, obviously for thermal protection as well as any exposure protection when we're going in different bodies of water. They'll also do a full face mask operations certification. This mask has communications hooked up into it, which has a hard wire and rope attached to it. And that way we can communicate with them while they're underwater. Next slide, please. And then our dive tenders just go through that same company, ERDI. They have ERD dive tender operation certification we put them through. Next slide, please. So once we have divers certified and we get them through the initial training, we do continuing education throughout the year. They have to do a minimum of 8 dives with a maximum of 12 throughout the year. We provide the C's and the dates for them. They work on their search patterns, operations at the lake, different skills while they're underwater, and as well as the swim test. And so this is a mix of operations at the Tempe Town Lake, and then we also do some pool operations as well. Next slide, please. And then our dive tenders are required to complete a minimum of 6 dive drills per year, with 4 of them being open dive drills or open water drills, meaning we conduct them at the Tempe Town Lake. It includes PPE, so deciding what the diver needs to wear, personal protection equipment. They go over diver safety, doing communications, working on search patterns with the divers. They also work on mapping documentation. Since they are topside, they're kind of the eyes and ears during the operation. Work on evidence recovery, and they also have a swim test they have to conduct twice a year. Next slide, please. So just some of the basic equipment. That first kind of group: mask, snorkel, fins, BCD, and wetsuit gloves. That's kind of typical dive equipment. We do have dry suit, which gets a little more into the public safety dive aspect of it. Once again, I talked about that full face mask that includes the hardwire communications and a tagline or rope that we always keep them on to help with search patterns and make sure we always have a line to them. Another piece of equipment that we use as we conduct operations off the fireboat as well. Next slide, please. So now that was dive. We're going to move on to our technical rescue team staffing. So we technically have 30 positions for our referred to as our TRT team. We have 2 units within the city: our engine and squad 278, which is at our station 1 on Apache, and then we have ladder 276 on Ash. Next slide, please. So supervision for our TRT team, once again, we do have a deputy chief who is one of our responders. He oversees the TRT program. And then we do have a captain on each of those trucks. So each of the 3 shifts, there's 2 captains. So there's 6 captains total that were within this TRT team. Next slide, please. So initial training, our members that get to go to the TRT training, it consists of a 200-hour course, which includes mountain rescue, confined space, building collapse, water rescue. This is done regionally with other departments. You can see 16 hours of this is spent on swift water training with 8 hours on rescue swimming. So that'd be more like still water, what you think of as the Tempe Town Lake or even some of the residential lakes around. They have to do continuing education throughout the year. 4 hours of it a year is spent on swift water or rescue swimming. And then there also is opportunities throughout the year where they do some in-house training and they are able to do rescue swimming. Next slide, please. So some of their equipment that they have their a PFD, a flotation device, fins, wetsuit. They have rope and taglines. This rope includes a throw bag, which could be anywhere from a 50 to 75-foot bag that they can throw out to people that are in the water. And they also have an inflatable boat and raft that they're able to deploy as well. But that's something they do have to inflate once they get on scene. Next slide, please. So we're going to go over water rescue operations. This is Phoenix Regional Standard or SOP 20411. This will outline responsibilities for first responders, our Tier 2 units, command officers, and other fire department personnel responding to the incidents. Water rescue operations present a significant danger to fire department personnel. The safe and effective management of these operations requires special considerations. A phased approach to water rescue operations, which include arrival, pre-rescue operations, rescue operations, and termination, can be utilized to safely and effectively mitigate these high-risk, low-frequency events. Next slide, please. So phase one is arrival and size up. This could be a non-TRT company, so an engine or ladder company that does not have those text on it. First arriving company officer will assume a command and begin immediate size up of the situation. This will include securing a witness to assist in gathering information and determine exactly what happened and the location of any victims if it's not obvious. They also assess immediate potential hazards to our rescuers, isolate immediate hazard areas, secure the scene, and deny entry for any non-rescue personnel. Make sure a scene is safe for rescue personnel, and assess on-scene capabilities and determine the need for additional resources. Typically, water rescue operations or things, water rescue that gets dispatched comes out as a TRT assignment, which will bring those technical rescue teams to the scene. Next slide, please. So still in the phase one, the arrivals size up. And also, the initial company officer needs to identify hazards that are present, which can include but are not limited to the volume of water, the velocity of water, debris in the water, hydraulics, depth of the water, rise and falling. That's more typical with whether it's a wash or some of the canals we have. They'll assign personnel upstream to see what's coming down, and then assign personnel downstream just in case we do have a person in the water that's moving. They'll assemble all necessary personnel, equipment, and patient packaging equipment that will be required for the rescue operation. And then any personnel, we operate with any personnel near the water show being a PPE, which will include personal flotation device, approved water rescue helmet, and approved footwear. Next slide, please. So the second phase of the rescue plan, rescue operations should be conducted with a little risk to the rescuer as necessary to effect the rescue. Low risk operations may not always be possible, but should be considered first. The order of rescue from low to high risk are. So first is talk. If we can talk the person out of the water, you know, this could be something where it's like a beach entry into the lake where that person maybe is just floating and they're able to swim back into us. Then we'll reach. We have a variety of different things we can reach with them, whether it's just pulling them in with an arm, pike pole, which is on our fire trucks. We do have rescue hooks on our fire boat, or anything else that we can just stick out and they can grab a hold on and pull them in. The next thing we'll do is attempt to throw something, whether it's some type of flotation device or a throw bag rescue line. That was what I was talking about. We can throw, we have our TRT units have them. We do have that on the boat as well too. So it's just a bag with rope in it, and then you can throw it out and it kind of unravels as you throw it. That throw bag is not a flotation device, but once they grab it, we can then haul them in and they stay pretty buoyant as we're hauling them in. The next option is to row. And so I mentioned our TRT units do have an inflatable raft. And so we can utilize that if we need to go out and get them, or use some other type of watercraft as well too. And then the last thing is go. So if none of those are possible, we can then go get the victim, and we can do a strong swimmer, which means we go out there on a tag line, get them some type of flotation device and bring them in. This is obviously the most risk of all these. Next slide, please. So once again, this is a very high risk operation and is only be conducted by trained TRT personnel. Prior to entering the water, rescue personnel should be briefed on the plan, the backup plan, emergency procedures. Rescue personnel should never be attached to a lifeline without the benefit of quick release mechanism approved for water rescue. Water rescue personnel should never do a breath hold, surface dive, and attempt to locate a victim beneath the surface of water. Next slide, please. So next we'll talk about fire boat operations. This is for our volume 2 policy specific to Tempe. The policy will define the operation guidelines for use of the fire boat, conducting water rescue training and standby activities on the lake for special events. Engine 275, which is up on Curry, will be our primary unit used to pick up and respond to the fireboat when it's requested for response. If they're unavailable, other units such as Engine 276 on Ash can, Engine 271 on Apache can go to the marina on the north side to get the fireboat. Fire department personnel operating from watercraft should enter the water to perform a rescue only as a last resort. The captain in charge should consider less dangerous intervention methods first. Rescue operations from watercraft should be considered and executed as follows from high to low risk. And once again, this is a little different than our TRT since we're already on a boat. Once again, we can reach out to them. We do have objects on there, the pole. We have backwards flotation device, so we can reach out with them and try to pull them in, or at least give it to them. We do have throw bags, again, like the TRT units that we can throw out to them. We also have some flotation rings as well on the boat. And then the last thing to do is we can go get them. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Nope, that was it.
Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, Deputy Chief Burns, that was a great presentation. Holy smokes, I did not know that we had this dive team. I assumed that we did, but I didn't know all the details. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. I just have a quick question. So you said you had 12 divers and 6 dive tenders. Does that mean 18 people total?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And when you do the recertifications, are those done in Tempe Town Lake?
So we don't have to, with our continuing education, we do, some of them are done the town lake. We've also used Monoplumber pool as well as the Clintock pool as well to do some of our dive training.
Okay, that's amazing. And so where, can you tell me again where the locations of the dive team are? You said there's 3 different stations that they're at?
Yeah, so we allow the members to be at any of those stations. The four dive team members, they can either be at the station, Station 5 on Curry Road, or Station 6 on Ash, or Station 1 on Apache. Those 3 stations, typically when we have a water rescue, they're always responding to the lake. And so those are our nearest stations to the lake. So that's where we kind of make sure that those members have to stay at those stations while they're on the dive team.
Okay. And the incidents that you listed for us went back to 2019. Is it pretty typical for other years to be around those same numbers? Because they seem, 2019 was 11, 2020 was 10, 2021 was 11. So it's about that number, about that same in the past also?
Yeah, that seems pretty consistent. It seems like, the be honest with the 5 body recoveries, it seems like we've had, it's like anything, some years we've had more or less. And
Okay.
so sometimes that can fluctuate a little bit, but those responses are pretty consistent.
Okay, that's great. Joel, Councilmember Navarro, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do, and thanks, Chief Burns. Great presentation and awareness for everybody. So with my small time with TRT, not being TRT, but doing water rescues at the river, I know there's a little bit of a difference when we're talking about swift water and lake water, so to speak. And everything that you're mentioning, is stuff that we know, and that's how we do it and go about our business. But if we're talking about what I think this conversation is trying to drive to, what would it take to have a staffed lake team? And then what would it take to any different type of training for a lake team that could come upon a rescue that is active, meaning someone is drowning? Obviously, with the presentation, we show the guidance of what we try to do first, at the least to the most riskiest, which means on the most riskiest side, if someone does come into the lake, are we just basically talking some basic lifeguard maneuvers of I was a lifeguard way back when. But just that type of training on trying to grab someone from not submerging and just pulling them back up. Is there any additional training that needs to be done if a staffing of a boat on a full-time basis could happen? Is there additional training you think of?
I think the strong swimmer training that our TRT techs get and our divers get it as well too. That's the appropriate training for this, because what that is they're in a PFD with an attached line that they're able to disconnect, and they have a flotation device on a tag line that they can go out there and they're able to give it to that person and be able to keep a distance. The issue here is, obviously, we talk about going to get someone in a canal or river or wash, and either a little closer. It's access to that person. Obviously, in the middle of the lake, it's going to take a little more time getting to them.
Right.
And so the training's there. It's just the access to that person. Depending on where they're in the lake, that's a little more of the challenge.
Right. And am I correct? The right now the fire boat is at the arena, and so we have two boats, fire and PD. Am I correct?
That is correct.
So best case, active rescue, Curry stations, closest station to get to the boat, get the boat out on the lake. Presently, to date, we do not actively, unless it's a special event, staff that boat.
That is correct. We do not, unless it's a special event.
Okay. And I know we have PD presentation after this, so I'll probably wait until that presentation goes. But I'll ask you this: with PD, do you guys cross train a little bit with the players that are on the PD boat by chance?
We have not cross trained. We've had, if our boat has been out of the water for maintenance, we are able to use their boat and have jumped on with them as well too. And so we haven't cross trained, but we have run incidents with them.
Okay. And then with that said, are the boats identical boats? Are they different? Do we have I have no idea if we purchased a boat with a pumper, so to speak, after the rail crash, but what do we have?
So originally we had two Boston Whalers. One was for PD, one was for fire. It didn't really work well for us because of, we typically put more people on there than PD, and as well as dive operations. It just wasn't big enough. And so we ended up going to a pontoon boat for quite a few years. That was just, it had been there a long time, but just, out in the sun, got beat up pretty good. So then we recently replaced it with that current boat we have right now, which has a huge bow. It has the front can actually lever down into the water, so you can actually pull people up and out right there. Has access to the water with two side doors as well too.
Okay, gotcha. That's good enough for now. I got some more questions at the end, but I'll let PD go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And again, thank you for that presentation. So we will move on to Police Commander James Swig for his presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Lieutenant Watkins is going to go ahead and kick it off.
All right, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I just have a few slides here with recent events from May 28th. It spurred these slides here and some action of our police department. And although I can't go into any details of that incident, as it's a current active and ongoing investigation, I have a few slides here about the Tempe Town Lake, and then I'll turn it over to Commander Swig for further information. So can we go to the next slide, please? So this is just a slide outlining our Tempe Town Lake. It's our largest body of water in the city, although as Chief Bird's indicated, we have several other bodies throughout the city. It's just over 2 miles long and goes between Center Parkway and McClintock Drive, essentially. And the average depth of the entire lake is about 13 feet. Next slide. Again, sorry, there's a few buttons to click.
Yeah, next slide, please.
There we go. So here's the Tempe Center for the Arts, where our last call was indicated on May 28th. And just to kind of show and reference the the distance of where our marina is. If you go ahead and hit next, it'll highlight the marina. One more and one more. Our marina is quite a bit of ways away. It's on the north side, and the incident occurred was on the south side. Next slide also. So from this slide, it shows the path that takes to get from the Tempe Center for the Arts on that bottom right slide. The driving time, according to Google, is about 7 minutes to drive from the Tempe Center for the Arts at the fastest route to get to the marina. Next slide. Some words that are missing off there. I'm going to turn it over to Commander Swig here to go over some of the details.
Okay, so moving forward. So first I want to touch on, over the last 3 years, we've obviously, as the police department, we've had over 1,000 calls for service to Tempe Beach Park and Tempe Town Lake. And those aren't all related to water incidences. They can range from people needing assistance. If we have a special event going on, there's always calls for service generated if there's activity going on. But we have specifically had, and I know that Chief Burns kind of touched on this, we've had some drowning incidences at Tempe Town Lake over the last 3 years. And I think his numbers were a little higher than ours, but the ones that we know about that we responded to were roughly 8. And I know that there's one specifically that states Tempe Town Lake, but depending on where that person is calling us, whether they be at McClintock and the lake or at Tempe Beach Park, that's where that call for service is going to get generated. So because of the length of the lake, that's how that, it's not going to come in specifically at Tempe Town Lake. So, and then something to also take into consideration is there's been numerous drownings throughout the city that obviously the fire department, Tempe Fire Medical Rescue, respond to, but we do as well. So, so as we move forward, the decision was made that we needed to provide assistance to people that are in need. So we did some research, and we identified, and I know that Chief Burns mentioned this, these throw bags. It's the Northwest River Supply throw bag, as he mentioned. It's a floating device that a person can throw out. It's got about 75 feet of rope, and then there's a loop at the end, and it'll allow for somebody to grab on, and then we can kind of pull them to the surface. You know, besides our canals, our private lakes, and then the lake, this will be a good thing. So our plan is we're going to train all of our officers, and they're going to be given a bag. So every officer will, especially in patrol, will have one of these throw bags as part of their equipment. We are still in the stages of creating policy, and really it's really the assistance of Tempe Fire Medical Rescue, right? They showed us that this was a good tool. This is what they've researched, they used, and not only do they use it, further research found that the military uses it, to including Navy SEALs. So we know it's a good tool to move forward with. So our goal is obviously finalize our policy, and then by the end of July have all of our folks trained up with that bag. We've already ordered the bags and received them, so now it's just the next steps on finalizing policy and then conducting the training. Are there any questions?
Not for me yet, thank you. Joel?
Not yet. I'll go for it.
Oh, that was it.
Questions?
We're on the question line.
So go ahead, Doreen.
No, I was just gonna say I think the NRS bags is a great addition to our officers. I'm glad that we're going to be getting those and be getting training and getting them to them in July. So thank you so much. But Joel, you had some questions specific.
Yeah, thanks, Doreen. And I appreciate the presentations. Thank you both for giving out the information and showing some things that I've kind of known and considered. So the one big blaring thing is if there is a rescue within the lake, is our time to get response to get there. The throw bags are great and we should have those tools, but if we're not in an appropriate area to manage with those throw bags, it doesn't have any use for us. So when we talk about having a lake, effectively, we probably have to talk about a rescue team that patrols that lake, being a possible combination of maybe PD, fire, whatever that may look like. And I think this is kind of, Doreen, please chime in as needed too. My thought is this is what, as we are getting more development on the lake, activity is starting to increase. We're seeing a lot more paddle boaters out there. We're seeing a lot more row teams going on, and also the fact that we're seeing a lot more of the businesses that rent out the boats, technically get out there on lake. So with that said, we potentially have a busy lake, and with potential, there's potential of an accident to happen. So our business, we supply, with the fire and police service, public safety. So what does that look like for the lake? How do we manage that? How can we be more effective in managing that? Thought process is we have opportunity because we have development within the lake, to possibly use one of those developments to have a piece of real estate to house a team nearby an arena, so that the time constraints to getting from a person into the boat is dropped drastically. Right now, if we used, as PD has shown, going from one side of a call to another side of call, if an officer is available, closer to the area, or an event is going on. Same with fire. If the Curry Station, truck is in service, great, we get there, but there's still a travel time. So when we talk about effective life saving, we don't have minutes and seconds to make an effective rescue, and that's what we see, and that's what we preach when we talk about kids around pool. You really only have seconds, minutes to make an effective rescue and to make an effective save. Now we have this big piece of real estate, a lake, which is visited just under the Grand Canyon as the most popular place to be at. I think we're at a crux, in my opinion, to how do we start figuring out staffing of that lake. So I think my possible ask is, and I love the fact, PD, you're showing the call volumes that you have seen in and around the lake. And I get that they're not water rescue, so to speak, all of that for sure. But there is a advantage, I would have to imagine, even if it is a PD matter, to have a boat rescue have probably a more effective response than probably a patrol car within that area of the lake if something were needed. If there was a water rescue, same thing. Within that area, we have a boat team that's actually staffed and manned and easily access to the boat team to make potentially an effective rescue. So I think my question would be, or my ask would be, and maybe on the fire side, the CAD side would be, okay, what medical calls in and around the shores of the lake have we gone to in the last 3 to 5 years? Maybe that's information I probably would like to get next time as we visit this. But to get that information through Phoenix CAD system, I think we can pull that up. Fire or PD has shown the call volume. I don't know if there's a heat map that's involved with that, and I would say that with fire too, kind of like a heat map of where those calls are at. That would be probably beneficial when we talk about potential placement of a boat. Obviously in the middle of the lake would be great, but can we do that? I know we're talking about build out of a boathouse where the arena's at. Does that boathouse then have the abilities to staff a rescue team there to make an effective rescue? When we talk about rescue teams, what additional training is needed for the lake, if there's any? And then, obviously, what does the staffing look like, or the combination of staffing look like for a boat rescue team? And it's not to say that, just thinking out loud, you have the rescue team and then the event of another train derailing, and you need a fire pump, boat pump to make effective usage of pumping water, and with the proximity of buildings close to the lake's edge, does that tactically make sense also? So I guess these are questions that I have that I would like to visit. And when we're talking about staffing, and we look at the data, I know that we have budget constraints, but I'll just say this. In any reaction, it seems like we have a big event or a more notable event that happens that causes change. We've already had events. So I'm trying to help mitigate those things as they happen. And I know that frequency probably is not, as any other station, we have PD or fire, on call volume, but it's a need that we have to do. I use the example of, we have to staff in Phoenix a rescue at the farthest end of a cul-de-sac in Ahwatukee, and they may run 1-2 calls, a shift. We have a fire engine, way back in the day that maybe ran 1 or 2 calls a month. But the fact is, you have to provide a service to help mitigate those potentials that happen. And since we provide a lake, I believe we have to provide a service to help mitigate any of those potential risks that are associated with the lake. So with that said, I think my thought process is, if we can capture some of the data, some of the heat map information, call volume, types of call volume, placement, potential placement of a water rescue boat, potential placement because of development that is beneficial to us, and how that might help in that placement. We can look at those things. But then the staffing options. I mean, maybe we do look at the data and say, you know what, for these months or this half a year or a quarter of the year or a full time of the year, we need to staff it like this. Let's just say we're heavy on 6 of the months and we need to staff it. Does that look like an overtime staff? Does that look like a position staff that can fluctuate to another position? I'm just throwing things out there. What other options of staffing potentials look like, or what other staffing options are there out there? Just straight overtime options on certain hours. We're seeing, just like I said, speaking out loud, we're seeing more rescue activity or more activity or issues with PD between 10 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. Does that warrant to staff an overtime base in those time zones for the year, for half the year, whatever that may look like, if it's overtime or whatnot? So that's kind of what I'm looking for and trying to drive at, if that makes sense. And Doreen, I'll let you chime in if needed.
Okay, well, so I agree. When I first got on council, one of the first things that Joel mentioned to me was that he really thought that we needed to be thinking about the public safety, as it is our #1 issue that we have in the city, is taking care of our residents, but looking at the safety of the people around Tempe Town Lake. And I agree with them that I'd love to get some more information about staffing, if it's a PD fire staffing that we could have. Can we have a boathouse that has a station that is staffed, that we have better access to helping people on the Tempe Town Lake? It is getting busier. We are adding more businesses. We are adding more residences there. We are increased volume in people on Tempe Town Lake. And I do think it is something that it would be great if we can get some more information to be able to discuss this and see if it's something that maybe we should be looking at in the future. But right now, I think just gathering information would be really, really helpful. And so that would kind of be on staffing to be able to do that for us.
So as Commander Swig, I definitely can get that information for you as far as a breakdown, time of day, day of week, and then the locations where we're seeing a high call volume, and then come back and we can kind of discuss that from our angle, from our aspect.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that'd be great too. And I think also be great, and maybe it's a combination too with PD and fire also maybe possibly working together on, hey, what does that look like? Do we staff together? Do we not staff together? The fire side of the house, what are they seeing with calls and everything like that? So yeah, I think that'd be perfect.
Well,
this Chief Burns, I was gonna say we can get those numbers together on our end as well for our units, and and their responses around the lake as well, not just to the lake.
Gotcha. And I know with CAD, Martha Johnson does a great job on grabbing heat maps and specifics. So I think that'd be a great resource to reach out to her to find that information.
Yeah, that would be great. And so we'll, we can add that to an item for a following meeting that we have. We really appreciate you guys looking up that information because, we're all here for the public safety and making sure people enjoy Tempe Town Lake and that they're safe down there also. So thank you. Joel, did you have any other questions or we'll move on to item number 5?
Nope, that's perfect. Let's move on. Thank you.
All right. Again, thank you so much for your presentations. So item number 5 is our next meeting, and we do not have that date scheduled yet, but it'll be posted so everybody will know when we're going to be doing that meeting. And it'll be posted either on our website, so you'll hear us talking about it also. So the next item I have is item number 6, which is adjournment. So if we don't have anything else, Joel, we are ready to adjourn.
Let's adjourn.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff. Thank you, everybody, for being here for this really long meeting. It was really important, and we're glad you were here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call me Seth too. 'Cause my name,
Seth?
'cause my name is
Thank you,
Seth,
Councilmember.
so, yeah. Call me Seth.
Thank you, guys. You were awesome.